Support Pro Play Games on Patreon.
Welcome back, Digimon Tamers. It's me, YuGiOh here, and I'm back doing a deck profile on the updated Blue Hybrid video that allowed me to get first place at our first regional for BT7. So let's get right to it. All right, so then I'm gonna go and run through this video pretty quickly. Obviously, you guys saw the original Blue Hybrid deck profile, and I don't really want to take too much more time into that. I will be discussing though my matchups, where I think the deck excels, and what I think are the downfalls. As also, I'm gonna talk about the side deck so that you guys can get some of my ideas on where I'm thinking this deck goes in the future. So let's get right to it. We got the eggs here. We didn't make any sort of changes to the eggs here. We have the 4 blue Upas plus the YuGiOh. This card is actually exceptionally excellent because of the fact that every time I strip a source, I get to draw and I don't have to commit my attacks. On the flip of that, I don't think the cards really matter because of the fact that this deck almost always goes sideways without care. In this format, which is a heavy hybrid format, you're most likely hitting a Tamer or a Rookie. So most of your Digimon that do suspend themselves to attack don't really get punished as much as they did in the past. So honestly, you can do any sort of arrangement here, but probably the most optimal would be the YuGiOhs maxed out with the Upa at 1. As for our spells or our option lineup, I cut back on the Hammer Sparks. I started noticing through playtesting that my opponents kept playing memory blockers, memory chokers, and I just kept seeing the Hammer Sparks in my hand. So if I know their deck is playing it, I'm forced to basically play the Hammer Spark early as opposed to holding out for a big tempo swing. So I didn't really enjoy that, but I do, even though Howling Memory Boost is in a sort of state that can also be blocked by the memory blockers, this card is crazy because of the fact that it just allows me to strip sources. So they can have a fully stacked level 6, and just with Tommy howling, that level 6 is now nullified for the rest of the game. Many times I actually played a Lord Nightmon in my regional matchups, and I was able to go Tommy Howling Memory Boost, and from there on I have complete control of the board because now that Tommy's getting promoted, that Lord Nightmon will never swing again. And that's all thanks to the initial play of Howling Memory Boost. This card also strips a ton of sources, so a lot of the black matchups that exist, Machine Dramon, the X-Antibody matchups, which are more rogue matchups, but they do exist. The fact that we do just play Howling Memory Boost plus Tommy plus Soren Joe makes those matchups almost negligible, and that's just a part of the mechanic of blue. And obviously the 1-up Ice Wall, this card is, I don't think I casted it more than once during the tournament. Obviously it's a 1-of. I wish I would have drawn it more. This card, that turn that I casted, the game is over because not only did I choke my opponent to 1 by setting up a board, I basically nullified their board. This card is unbelievable. You gotta play it. It's at 1 for a reason, right guys? And then off for our Tamers, we still maxing on Tommy. Tommy is utterly broken. There's nothing that needs to be said about this card. It did everything that I wanted to do. This coupled with Leopardmon, it just made these huge boards that were super threatening now nullified, and I can still maintain aggression. I continue to play triple Koji. I didn't want to max out on him because I thought it'd be a little too heavy, but that's the one consideration that I do have for this deck. I think Koji is exceptionally strong, and I think we need to cut like some other cards to make him a 4-of, but that also could be cloggy, so it's really up to personal preference. I did enjoy the 4-3 split and found a lot of success with it. As I said in my other video, I think I needed to up my Davis just to make sure I didn't get choked in the future. So seeing Davis early is super important because all your plays happen around 3 memory. You got to play the 3 Davis. It's one of the, if not the best memory tamer out there, second only to TK, because it adds consistency to the deck when it's being played. We have 2 Soren Joes, which was very nice. It came up when it came up. It was very good, but it doesn't come up always. So my one consideration for switching the tamer lineup is making this a Koji. But other than that, very happy with my tamer lineup. Definitely got to play the 3 Davis as well as the 4 Tommies. For our rookie Strabi lineup, it basically stayed the same, where we have the BT7 Strabi, the OG Strabi, and the middle child. Very good consistency cards. Every time they're on played, we have strong on deletions. We have great consistency with both of these, and then we just have just a good little hybrid that can be played in the future. And then for our floodgates, I was able to switch around and play some clams. I think the clam did way too much, more than I thought it was going to do when I first made the deck. Everyone playing hybrids allowed me to safely create the clam in the back, promote it when I needed it, when it was the turn that they had to commit to the board, and now they are oftentimes just, the turn is negated. They have 3 memory to work with. Obviously, you're paying 2 unless you have a Boko on the board, but let's say you're paying 2 and then 1. That was supposed to be their big turn, right? Then they're going to swing and do stuff. well, the clam just says now you have to pass your turn. So you can always safely keep them in the back unless you have other rookies to promote, and then when they need a key turn and you know they're going into the 5, you bring them out and you let them struggle. The Madoki Betamon, I only put him to 1. I think it's an exceptionally strong card. I just didn't find myself thinking that I was going to play into too many blue matchups or any purple matchups where I think this card excels. Depending on your locals and what you think is coming out on the board, this card can be up and you can obviously rearrange. But I definitely would at least consider playing 2 clams. You can up this card depending on what your locals seems to be playing at the time. And then we have 3 Boko and the new addition of Nemon. I heavily underestimated Nemon. Every time I was playtesting with blue, I felt that I was under 2 separate turns, right? So after I make my turn, I have one of 2 options. I want to play a Digimon, a searcher, like a Bokomon or a Strabi or something, or I want to play a Tamer. And that's the scenario that I was in very heavily. I didn't know which of the 2 to do. It's actually a pretty difficult choice. Oftentimes, I would opt to go for the Tamer because there's less interactions with Tamers as there are to Digimons on the board, but they both create a net 1 attack. So I thought to myself, what card legitimately just both of these? And that's actually Nemon. Nemon does both because we have access to not only Koji as well as Tommy. The fact that this triggers almost always. This actually let me win so many games because it puts 2 bodies on the board as well as allows me to recycle Tamers that people are really unaware of. Many times in my games I had Digimon suspended with Tamers under them because they didn't die in security because security is so weak that they swung into them not knowing that Nemon's on the board, triggering them, playing a Tommy or a Davis from my trash and allowing me to extend even further on brick, stop their board. This card was really good, man. Especially in blue, and maybe other decks it's not as crazy, but in blue for sure I would consider Nemon almost for sure a staple. And we'll move into the hybrid lineup, which I don't think really changed much, as we have 4 of the snowman, 4 of the leopard, 1 dogi, 1 OG dogi. So as I was saying in my previous video, these 4 are unbelievably amazing. Freezing the board is really, really broken. The Kendo, I ended up making it a 1 of because I thought, well, in the matchups that this card is good, aka they have a Gazi or a Boko on the board, this kind of just deals with it. The fact that it is a 6K also makes sure that it almost certainly survives to a rookie, a Tamer boost. This card oftentimes would allow me to swing and then go into a quick level 5 and then push up to the board as I'm dealing with their board. So very strong card for what it's worth. It's also very good to evolve it in the bag and just set it up for later over a Strabi or something like that. This card proved its worth. I wouldn't up it too much, but it's definitely very, very strong. It's just its cost is a little too heavy and more than I'm willing to pay. The Kendo did Kendo things. It jammed sometimes, but jamming again in this format maybe not as relevant. So it still serves its play as being a 2-cost hybrid. It's still very strong and very safe to swing with, but it doesn't really have as much of a strength as the leopard. Moving on to our level 5s. We got 4 of the good guy. So I ended up cutting out the other Beowulf because I just didn't really see myself paying 3 memory to ever play him. Oftentimes I'd be swinging with a hybrid, the hybrid would live, and I would end up passing my turn by summoning the other Beowulf, and that just didn't seem good enough. That didn't seem like the card added enough tempo into the game, whereas this card, every time I saw it, it basically just did the game. Funnily enough, this card is also now once per turn, so if by some reason, some unforeseeable reason, you did a play where you were able to put this on top of any other hybrid, you go hybrid, this on top of this, swing, bounce this, spin something, unsuspend this somehow, do it again, bounce something. Yeah, I was able to do that once during my tournament run, and obviously that game ended swiftly after that play happened. Beowulf is way too strong at what it does. The other Beowulf did seem so heavily overshadowed that I just decided to play 4 of this and make it my only level 5, because our only 6 that we go into still remains the king of the deck, Magna Guru. Very powerful level 6. This is the card that's going to be unsuspending your Beowulfs. It's not very often that we put Magna on top of the Beowulf, but it's definitely a play that could happen, as they sometimes leave their level 5s on board, that they suspend them to deal with your level 4s. So you promote, you go into Beowulf, you swing, you bounce a Gazi, you bounce a Boko, right? And then you just end your turn by playing this on top of the Beowulf, bouncing their 5 and unsuspending your Magna Guru, which is the play that often happens while still keeping them at 3 memory. And that's basically the deck. There weren't many changes, but I do believe after much play testing that the deck requires a lot of thoughts while going through it, but the deck is very, very strong at what it does. The deck has access to both floodgates Digimons. It has access to one of the best memory tamers in the game, has access to 2 character tamers, as well as having powerful access to Boko, Nemon. All the Strabis are searchers. The deck is very consistent. If there's one word to define blue, it's consistency. Where it lacks is it doesn't really have a blowout card like like red or purple does, but the deck is very strong at what it does and will do it consistently. Where it lacks, though, is its security. Our security is very, very weak. If you looked at my deck, there's only one option in my security that's ever going to do anything to you, and that's my Ice Wall. My Howling Memory Boost, although, yes, it allows me to extend on my turn, it doesn't really stop your turn. So if you're playing strong blowout decks like Red Hybrid or Purple that just summons a bunch of Izemons, this deck may have a little bit of a struggle with it, because my game plan is to just be consistent, go into security, and continue my plays. My deck does what it does almost every single game. And not everyone can say that for theirs. It's very difficult for my deck to break, and it obviously has a good time breaking boards that are present. So that's where I think it thrives, that's where I think it fails, and I hope to see you guys on the next one. Don't forget to keep checking out our videos and supporting us on Patreon as well as Twitch. And as always, guys, keep topping.